Good morning, everybody. I'm Elain Lockman, one of the co-founders and directors of Atta Plus, and welcome to another segment of Ask Atta. And today, this morning, we have a very, very special segment in conjunction with International Women's Month. And just a little bit on this special session, we're actually giving away goodies today to empower women, and you need to stay tuned till the end, to find out how you can win. Okay, and before I go on, I'll just want to tell you a little bit about what is Ask Atta. So we do this on a monthly basis. It's an educational talk show brought to you live by Atta Plus. And Atta Plus is a regulated equity crowdfunding platform with the Securities Commission of Malaysia. And during this Ask Atta segment, we invite guest speakers and experts to share their thoughts on current issues, topics related to equity crowdfunding, financial education, entrepreneurship, talent development, fundraising, and anything that we feel that would interest the entrepreneur community or even the investor community. So some of the previous shows that we've done, we've hosted speakers like Yasu Tanaka, an award-winning storyteller, also covering topics such as A to Z of equity crowdfunding, business valuations, and demystifying the budget 2021. Anyway, today I'm very, very happy to welcome our three special guests, and we will be talking really about a very interesting topic indeed. And today we are actually going to be covering topics that I think that's not been spoken of much, especially women representation in the venture capital and private equity industry, accessibility of funding from VC and PEs for women-led companies, specifically for women tech businesses, and the sort of whether there's policies available already out there that support women participation, in this sector. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our three guests today. And the first one, may I invite, please welcome Dato Darawati Hussain.
Hi, morning.
Hi, morning.
So nice to be on your show,
Thank you, Dato. Thank you, Darawati. Okay, so I'll call you Darawati,
Yes, please,
Okay, thank you. So just a little bit about Darawati, everybody. So Darawati is an independent director and chairman of the investment committee in MAFCAP. And she's no stranger, to the capital markets industry with 30 years of experience under her belt in corporate finance, asset management, private equity. And she's also, besides the MAFCAP position, she's also a member of the Audit Oversight Committee, a board of Securities Commission, and chairman of RHB Private Equity Holdings. And one of the roles that I think we're very proud to mention here that Darawati was previously also the chairperson, of the Private Equity and Venture Capital Management Association of Malaysia. And which is actually an astounding achievement, for the women community, actually. Thank you, Darawati, for joining us. Okay, next up is Tunku Alizakri, the illustrious Tunku Alizakri. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Zakri. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And just a little bit about Zakri. Zakri is the independent director of IHH, Astro, and Sime Darby Plantation. And I'm very, very proud also to mention here that Zakri is the EPF CEO who pioneered the world's largest... Well, you are the EPF CEO who pioneered the world's largest Sharia private equity SMA fund at USD 600 million. And I believe it's a first as well,
Yes.
So very, very proud of that, achievement, Zakri. And a little bit more on you. Your experience cuts across policy development, strategic planning, communications, HR, and marketing. And I think your career have also centered around pushing the envelope by expanding digital acceleration, powering social protection and well-being, adopting environmental, social, and governance and sustainability metrics. So that's a little
Yes.
bit on Alizakri. And last but not least, we have a very special guest from across the causeway, Miss Mouna Aouri. Welcome, Mouna.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. So excited to be here.
Yeah. And a little bit on Mouna. Mouna is the founder of Woomentum. Woomentum is an organization that aims to support more women to fully participate in the engine of growth and innovation. So aside from Woomentum, Mouna is also a venture partner at Beacon Fund, an investment firm in Southeast Asia that's designed to empower women-owned SMEs and businesses that primarily intentionally serve women and girls. So, and she's very, very driven by the vision to continue developing inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems that promote greater access to funding. So that's a little bit about all our guests today. And without further ado, I think let's get into the subject matter. And I think this topic, about women participation in the VCPC landscape, and trying to get more women involved in also the tech-led businesses, and it's not new, right? And I think I think this is the right time, whereby we always see the topic of diversity, being brought up, right, in businesses, on the boards, and also at sea level. So I think I'd like to begin with you, Darawati.
Sure.
And I think we actually looked at the women participation in the VC landscape, right? And just looking at the licensed VC, and we see that there's only we see that there's at least one female board director participation in the VC sector in Malaysia. There's only about 28%, which is I would have expected it to be more, like really, So and I think this is where I think I would like to hear from you and your views on this, and also another thing that I think we'd like to hear from you is also how can we reduce this disparity of this funding between male-led and women-led companies, and because if you look at the statistics, and there's a lot out there, and I do not want to go into that bit. It is still very poor, compared to the male-led businesses that's been getting funding from the VC and PE community.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Elain, for sort of starting off with that as into this discussion. I think the challenge with our industry is that we don't have very good data to back up some of these statements we throw out. But I just wanted to share, what I've kind of come across in terms of women leadership in the private equity and venture capital space, which is out there right now. So I think there has been a study by Prequin in 2018. So according to the data that they have, which is global, across, I think it was around 300,000 private equity professionals, they had a number which was something like 6% of women was represented on senior leadership of these firms. And of that 6%, and this is global, of that 6%, half of them were either in investor relations or legal compliance, and not so much on the sort of like investment decision deal making, or even on the leadership position on the boards of those private equity firms. And there was also a comment that not much has changed over the past 20, 30 years that private equity has been, and venture capital has been around. And then when we drill down to Asia, this is slightly different. I think like places like China and Hong Kong, it's slightly higher at 14%. I think in Malaysia, we are very, very low. I can probably count with one hand how many sort of like senior women partners in Malaysian private equity venture capital firms. So I think the issue sort of starts at sort of recruitment level. When you talk about leadership position, you must have a pipeline of uh, um, uh, investment professionals that come through with the experience, with the network, and the industry in our markets are quite small. I think in Malaysia we have maybe 16 to 20 active VC PE firms. So each firm is probably less than 20 in terms of staffing. So I think
Yeah.
that itself is the challenge. The industry has been trying to develop within Malaysia, and I think this is also the same for most emerging economies. And the issue here is that funding in this sector needs to be nurtured because these are the source of capital that funds innovation, that funds startup entrepreneurs. Apart from equity funding platforms, venture capital and private equity is the source of funding for this sort of risky ventures. And so we have one issue on the one hand is that it's still a very nascent industry, it's a very small industry, and at the other hand,
Yeah.
naturally, I think the women get crowded out from leadership positions in these companies. But having said that, I think in Malaysia, we don't have sort of I would say barriers to women taking on those positions. So it's not an issue of, I guess, perception or ability or experience. I think we have very numerous names of women who are very active in the technology, in the entrepreneur space, in the venture space that are at decision making levels. I think more of an issue is attracting sort of mid-level or even junior level women to enter into this space because it's not really a space which has a very clear defined career plan, strategy and things like that. We don't have time to go into sort of the sort of skill sets you need to sort of be very successful as an investment professional. But um, in my opinion, it's to do some of the limitations is to do with cultural in some of the markets in Southeast Asia. So that's on the point of sort of representation on leadership for some of these firms.
So you will see that in terms of the proportion of the staff, I guess. So there's a lot lopsidedness, towards male analysts, I guess.
I would say so, yes. I would say so. I would say that, and this is not, I think we would have to check with MBCA, but I would say it's less than 10%. If you
Right.
exclude the women that make up the finance team or the investment relations team or legal or compliance, I would say it might even be less than 5.
Okay.
So I think just adding to that, I
Yeah.
think globally it's recognized that our alternative investment sector is one of the lowest in terms of gender disparity and representation. So we have a lot to catch up.
Any comments on that, Zakri?
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, because I can only comment from a much more general level from women and men in terms of the labor workforce, right? I mean, the latest data that's actually been showing is that female labor participation rate is in Malaysia is only around 40%, right? And that data only captures more from a formal sector representation. And we know for a fact that for women and men, women are highly exposed more to the informal sector. Right, the men would be in your blue collar, white collar work, but the women would be more in terms of the hawkers and care workers and all that. And if you actually look in terms of the data from the World Economic Forum, you know that we are currently number 111 in the world global gender gap. That's not a nice number for us to have, right? So, and if you even want to look in terms of political empowerment, gone are the days when we used to go and have the Rafida Azizas of the world. We used to go and have like the deputy prime minister. He used to be a female also, but we're also starting to go and see in terms of at the highest level and the echelons of politics and government, we are regressing in terms of political empowerment, right? The data that you showed in terms of VCs that women are on board is actually, for me, it's actually not too bad. You know why? Because women in boards in general in Malaysia is only 10.2%. So that's an even worse number. Okay, so when you want to go and talk about this is all about the what's happening and how do we want to address it. Maybe how I want to go and attack this, and how I've in my experience when I was in EPF and my other organizations, I think we need to also understand the whys, right? Why are women in such a different position? And I think Darawati had mentioned culture. It's not just culture, I think it's also biases. If you really think about it, and it's not just Malaysia, it's not just Asia, I think it's throughout the whole world. And what are these biases, right? The first biases is that women are responsible for the whole family, including the parents, whether it's their parents or their husbands or partners' parents, right? So if you look again at the data from Malaysian perspective, adult women, 81% married, 49% are main breadwinners, 42% are responsible for their elderly care, and 48% of the women already have children below 18. So straight away, you have this bias that women are the ones responsible for for the family. So what the heck are they doing going out there hunting for the woolly mammoth when you should be at home tending to the hearth or the fire, right? So that's the first bias that we have to attack. The second bias that we also have to address is that, as a boss, if I bring women into my company, at the end of the day, they are going to eventually drop out. And when do they drop out? When they get married or when they have children, correct? And I'm quite sure there are also some women bosses who thinks exactly the same thing. So then it becomes a question of dollars and cents. Why the heck should I be investing in this talent who is a woman as opposed to this talent who's a man? They are both equal, but the thing is, in terms of 3, 4, 5 years down the line, they're going to drop out anyway. So you know what? I'm going to put my bets on the men. It comes down to dollars and cents. Now, the third bias I want to address, and actually,
how many bias do you have?
I have 3. I can't go through too many more. Okay, because I've got a long. Are you trying to tell me to shut up? Because let me go to the third.
No, please don't.
Third bias, yeah, third bias. And this is where, me as the sole male here, now this falls that men are seen to be available anytime, right? So if I were a boss, I can call the man after work hours, during weekends, because you know what? You don't exist other than to go and serve the business. Whereas if you're a woman, I sort of like say, oh, you're a main breadwinner after work, I shouldn't be able to call on you. So if I were a business owner, that bias is straight away. Hey, you know what? I'm going to go for the man who, because I can make full use 120% of his time at any time. So we need to really understand that these are some core biases that we need to address before we can even talk about the what's in the house. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, Elain, before we go into the how to do it, right?
Thank you. Before I get on to Mouna, Mouna, you want to say something? Because I want to hop back to Darawati first.
Absolutely, please go ahead. Yeah, because it was really, putting some points that I was itching to answer, but anyways.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to go back to Darawati because I want to come back to the accessibility of funds, right, by female-led entrepreneurs from VCs and PEs. In your experience, I mean, over many years of experience, and you've seen so many proposals, pitches coming in.
Yes.
Compared to the male-led businesses, what are the numbers like?
Yeah, so I think, over 20 years, and again, I'm not generalizing because I'm actually quite data-driven. So in my organization, I track every single deal that comes through, whether it's a phone call or just an email.
Yeah.
So say on average, I get 1,000 deals in a year. I would be quite confident to say that, less than 20 would be led by a woman. And that I think has not changed on average. However, I do notice that in the tech sector, that has probably changed quite dramatically. And again, I would love to see some proper data on how that has evolved.
Yeah.
However, I think, and I think the reasons for, if you think about agriculture, SME versus technology, I think for the reason why you see less deals, and this is not to say that access to funding to women is less. I think funding to women in Malaysia is available. What matters is how good your proposal is. So I think the reason why women-led companies are less is because they are not so aggressive like men founders.
I guess men hustle. They hustle.
Funding. Well, for them, they will say they want to raise 15 million when actually they only need 1 million. And, this is, and whereas for a woman founder, and this might not be fair and just generalizing, but I think for 100% of the cases, for a woman, if I need 1 million, I will go out and get 1 million. You do have to encourage them to aspire to a different kind of level, but they're just very cautious, in terms of expanding regionally and all that. But I think access to funding for women is not the main issue again.
Okay, thanks for that, Darawati. Now, yes, Mouna. I know you're
Wow.
dying. Okay.
It's amazing. There are so many points.
She's ready to fight here.
I don't even know where to start because you have raised so many amazing points there.
Yeah.
So I kind of try to structure them. I think, Elain, I would like to answer a few things before you ask me the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there are a few things that I wanted to share, listening to Zachary. So to answer that, have recently made a research, a qualitative research among women-owned businesses in Malaysia. And it really confirms many things that we were mentioning. And it goes around, awareness and also reluctance actually to raise money for scale. We have also found that women entrepreneurs, and they are really like medium companies, these are not micro enterprises. So the expectation around, awareness and engagement with what's available out there to grow their businesses and financing was of course high. But this is what we found out really. Almost like 90% of the women that we had interviewed, basically they are averse to borrowing money or saving their businesses because they feel that they are afraid of growing too fast or too big for not being able to attend to family demands and obligations. And that was really something for me, like a wake-up call. What is exactly the problem? What are exactly the biases here? Is it coming now more from women's side of things, or is it a response to a cultural thing? But there are so many, challenges that we can talk about them all day long. They are just there. What we also found is that the women who have engaged and adopted more technology, they seem to be more empowered and they seem to have more awareness and more willingness and understanding of the importance of growing their businesses, because when they do, they can empower themselves, their families, their communities, and of course their society as a whole. So I just wanted to kind of answer that to Zachary's points there, that is actually backed by research and it is in Malaysia. So so that's one thing. And the second thing that I wanted to kind of really agree with Darawati there, that there is a whole democratization and to access to funding, and technology is enabling that. Technology, one. Two, in Malaysia, seen from the outside, and when I share this to other countries or to other people who don't know very well the market, in Malaysia, in terms of regulation, you guys made an amazing job in terms of regulating equity crowdfunding and P2P lending, and compared to other neighboring countries in ASEAN and even further away. And that kind of alternative financing really works for women. Research shows it. I won't go into those data and details, but all I can say is that research shows that this kind of alternative financing is a democratization, to access financing for everyone, but specifically for women, because they are very good at engaging with communities, engaging with customers, and so the increasing the awareness of those kind of available platforms and tools will help women really capitalize on those new tools and help them basically grow, actually both personally and professionally. So that was just
so technology plays an important role. Yeah, Mouna, from what I hear.
Yes, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, you can't run away from the human aspect of funding. I mean, when I was in EPF and we were looking at a lot of PE funds, for example, and we were looking from across the world, majority, I would say 99% of the deals that were brought to the table, whenever we looked in terms of the management structure of the VC of the PE fund company, invariably the top are all men. If they are from the West, it will all be white, right? And it came to a point for EPF, we literally started sending out a signal that we expect to start seeing more diversity in our PE fund managers before you come and see us. Because we believe that having diversity in place provides that whole aspect of difference in thinking and thought and opinion and different way of doing business, right? So from a funding perspective, technology is great, but the human element is still going to be there. Because if you really think about it, the bro network is still very strong, right? And especially when you talk about technology. I can't speak about VC funds, but I can talk about PE funds. Most of the time, the deals that they actually go and source out will be from the people that they know, the people they grew up with, they went to school with, or they were in Silicon Valley, they were all together. Absolutely. So if you're not in the bro network, you're just out of the deal. So the human element has to be addressed at the end of the day. From a technology perspective, there was one fund that we actually were working with. I think it was called Equity. Yeah, they started doing AI in terms of identifying the type of companies that they wanted to go and invest in. And to me, I think if we were able to go and create a technology that would be able to evaluate any new funds, so you do blind testing. You know that story of that world-class orchestra which was trying to recruit musicians? When they did it, when they could see the musician, invariably it was all men. But when they did blind testing, it became much more balanced. So similarly, we should actually use technology to create a blind structure where funds come in irrespective of the gender diversity aspect of it. Again, I know I'm just talking off the top of my head.
But I think Zakri, on that note, right, I think that was what happened, I think, in the States, So I think over time, a lot of the companies in the States and VCs, PEs, what they did was they did exactly that. They wanted all the proposals or investment propositions that came in. They just wanted to see the business proposals without knowing, who the founders are, what gender and background, race, and so on. Yeah. So, like you say, then it is more more fair, level playing field. Yeah.
Elain, if I can also ask Darawati. I've just been reading on some of these VC companies that is being put in Malaysia, and the ones which is done by women, it is principally to address female issues. So, for example, like I saw this example of Pink Ride, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It's about safety for women, for the Ubers and the Grabs, but it's specifically for women. Now, I'm just wondering, just by the name in itself already points it out to it's a women thing, it's a women mentorship or whatever, right? Is that true for Malaysia? Are all the women VCs principally focus on women issues as opposed to let's look at the global issues and let's look at solving world problems, and let's move away from even identifying it as pink ride or whatever, do it as a pure solution. Again, I apologize if I'm coming from a much more high-handed, but I think this is quite an interesting perspective that I was reading on.
Yeah. I guess, in the industry itself, you have to look at, there are many players, and I think there's quite a big diverse range in terms of investment strategy among the players. But I think for MAVCAP, what's important for us when we identify our GPs is really performance. So when you look at that as performance, and then we have a bit of a developmental agenda there. There has to be links to Malaysia. We don't have a gender bias or a race bias, but preferably, there is some link to Malaysia in terms of the GP's investment strategy. So I think, and then you go down one level to the GP, how do they evaluate investment ideas? If, I guess, a female entrepreneur's idea of targeting the women market very directly by doing pick something, and if they can prove that there is a market for it, then I guess it's fundable. But I think as a scalable model, which most of the GPs under MAVCAP, they're looking at regional, it's very unlikely that they would focus on those kind of
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, which brings me to a question from the audience, and this question I'd like Mouna to maybe address it first, and Darawati and Zakri, you can share your thoughts on this. So the question is, what is your view on setting up an investment fund, be it PVC, grants, specifically for women? Also having an index of companies listed and unlisted for gender equality. I think we talked about it, to benchmark them against key indices. So, and I'm directing it to Mouna, I guess, because you are currently one of the venture partners, for Beacon. Please, Mouna.
Yeah, that's a relevant question because, I didn't start off as an investor, at least not, institutional investor. So I did lots of angel investing, but not institutional investing, and slowly started, of course, going a little bit into that because I felt it would complement and really strengthen the work that I'm doing with Woomentum, is to really, kind of bridge and, enable the community, at least of Woomentum, and the people that we work, the women that we work with, to help them access more funding. Because Woomentum simply cannot do and doesn't have that mandate. So that's how I kind of, in gender lens investing, and when Beacon Fund started, was really a very, very innovative fund. And it's really a boundary breaking fund. And that's why I kind of engaged with the fund and with the founders, because they have a long experience in understanding what are the challenges that women entrepreneurs face in the region, not in the US, although the Panama capital that seeded Beacon Fund is actually a fund from the US, but has been operating in the region for a long time. So the team, the co-founder is, of course, a woman, Shuyin Tan, and she's really has that perspective, the Asian perspective, the women perspective, and also the experience in investing. So it comes with the gender lens investing, which means you create that pull factor. You create that avenue for women to come and apply and say, okay, this is a women-focused one, let's go. Because what we notice also, women don't go and pitch to, other gender-neutral, I would say, funds. So that's the pull factor is kind of important. The second one, the fund, the gender lens investing doesn't come only with money, it comes also with non-financial support, which is very often technical assistance, and it comes with helping based on needs assessment, of course, very specified needs assessment, technical support in financial management, for example, but also most interestingly, in terms of leadership and coaching that is also gender focused, because this is where the experience and the understanding of women's or gender specific challenges becomes very, very important from an investor perspective for it to be, successful in their mission. We noticed that women very often they don't see themselves as business leaders, or they don't see themselves as business women, although they are business women. Very often they say, "Oh no, I'm not a businesswoman. I'm just doing this thing." And very, very maybe humble, but you need to kind of strengthen that leadership. And so like a coaching and executive coaching and leadership coaching that is specific for and targeted at women is something that is also coming together with the investment, and the program will be managed for the portfolio. And this is why I feel these kind of funds are very useful. I always believe that we need these funds until we no longer need them to exist. We would need to kind of if we're successful, is to invest in women and really contribute to more women to be, that we no longer need a gender lens investing. I don't know whether you see what I mean, but yeah, so that's a little bit about the gender lens investing.
Yeah, any comments, Zakri?
Yeah, I would I would actually take Mauna's point straight away, rather than move towards no gender lens. Let's just go and look at current infrastructure that we already have. There are already investment funds, dedicated funds for ESG, for example, right? And women issues and gender diversity issues can very easily fit under an ESG lens. So I think the big question is that in terms of definition, what composes an ESG fund, right? At this point of time, it's purely about climate change, because that is one of the biggest issues, right? And a lot of funds, banks, institutional investors have forgotten about the S and the G. The G is taken as a hygiene factor, the governance aspect of it, but it's the social aspect that nobody has really looked at. Okay. Now, for me, it boils down to the specifics. So when you want to talk about gender-specific funds or whatever, right? So what does it mean? What does it mean when you actually have a women's fund? Does it mean that 100% of the company must be run by women? Must it be like the businesses must be for the good of the women? And what does good for the women mean?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So most of gender lens investing every fund, they have their criteria, right? And so you would set it at a certain percentage of ownership in the company, or the company has to advance the lives of women or provide products that are serving women in a way. And we can actually go from a breast milk as an example. If that's the company that will help women be more independent and regain the workforce earlier in her maternity. So that's really something we would love to do. For example.
No, but you see, this is where, when we actually have we have very broad categories at this point of time, right? So in my experience, when in EPF we started setting up a climate fund, for example, even when we started talking about climate change fund, which sectors do we go into? Palm oil sector, is that a climate fund? Is it not? So it's about coming down to the specifics for any institutional investor and or bank, which would actually talk about gender issues, and how do you then structure the fund that makes sense to the bank and the institutional investors' KPIs or targets and returns, right? So I think for one, I'm not even sure whether we actually have banks or institutional institutions which actually have a dedicated gender diversity business units, whereby you could actually look at unlocking the full business value from a gender, and I don't even want to go and say female lens, it's a gender lens and a gender diversity lens. And how do you actually translate that into real business sense? I don't think we have that at this point. In fact, at least I know for a fact under institutional investors, we don't. And we need to go and set that up so that then we can translate investing into gender diverse and or female focused funds or businesses, which can then translate into real dollars and cents. Money talks at the end of the day.
Yeah. Darawati, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, specific to the question, which is one is setting up a female focused fund.
Yeah. You know, I generally feel that there is a lot of funding available for entrepreneurs and businesses, and what I think the common complaint is usually from those whose businesses don't make the cut. So regardless how you're structured, if you're all women, you're not all women, you're mixed teams, if you're a great business, it'll get funded. And the challenge for us is, we get VCs from Singapore, from Hong Kong, from China, from US coming in for all our best deals and opportunities. So then you come to, it's more of a political thing perhaps, where certain segments of the economy say they don't have access to funds. So my background is development finance. So I've been involved in setting up venture capital funds targeted at those segments of the market which feel like they do not have access to funding. So like the agricultural sector, the Bumiputras, the sort of micro enterprises. We even had an Indian Action Fund. We never had a women fund because, for some reason, I think nobody lobbied to their MP to have it set up. But we've had a fund set up for every single sort of minority group, and
Except for women.
because I think women feel like they know how to fund their own businesses. As I mentioned, we don't see we don't see much coming through the deal flow pipeline in terms of seeking funding, which are sort of like women led. But on that point, I would say that my best deals were women led, and at MAFCAP, our best GPs were women led. So even though the pool was small, it doesn't reflect the quality. Yeah. So in terms of having a gender-focused fund, I have to agree with Mouna on this, that I think it makes sense, to have that if the market feels like it needs it, but it's got to come with all those specialty skills targeted to draw out some of the strengths that women have. For example, you can't talk about strategy to them in a way which you do to a male-oriented audience. It's got to be tailored to how women think about strategy and time management and negotiation. There are some subtle differences in how, and some like the business programs don't fit to how we think about those issues or deal with those issues. That's my thoughts.
Thanks, Darawati. Okay, I would like to pick on. I think you said something really interesting just now. When you were saying that you were when you were entrusted to come up with all this developmental finance, right? For specific minorities or underserved communities or groups, and somehow the women or women support under this category, was not there, and it could be because the MPs, did not look at it, or maybe there's not enough. Well, I know for a fact there's not enough female MPs, in the cabinet anyway.
Yeah.
So, and I would like to address this question to Zakri. So when you talk about policy, because no doubt, I think we've had a great female governor of Banagara, chairman of Securities Commission. Yeah, it's always a first. And even having said that, Tan Sri Rafida held the position of Ministry of International Trade for many, many years. It's always a first. But it wasn't. I think it wasn't done in a systemic way. It just happened, for whatever reason, right? So I think from just a question and your views on this, and later maybe we'll get Darawati and Mouna, from a policy perspective, right? How can we actually, like you said earlier, Zakri, how can we ensure that there is enough diversity, right? right? Within, say, governments or corporates or GLCs or what have you. Yeah, your thoughts.
Well, okay. The first thing is, remember there's this new company set up called the 5G Digital National Broadband?
Yes,
Berhad?
yes.
Where's the women there? Right?
Okay.
So no, I can say it, right? I can say it.
Yeah.
So if you really want to talk about it, it comes back to the bro network, right? Where are the women in that high level policy making decision bodies which actually addresses technology, cutting edge businesses, for example, who's really running the shows? Okay, credit that we have KJ there and all that, but you also have to divorce between the ministers as well as the bureaucracy. I think we need to start looking at the bureaucratic perspective, like how many women representation is already there, right? That's number one. The second thing is, why do we have a dedicated, okay, again, I might be thrown out of Malaysia for this, a dedicated ministry which talks about women, family and community affairs. The fact that you have women linked to family and community seems to again come back to the original bias that women are supposed to be responsible for the family. Now, if you want to talk about Scandinavian countries, right, they have this policy in place which takes the responsibility of raising a family on both the men and the women. They have paternal leave and maternal leave when combined together. When you give birth, that's 2 years between the two of you, right? Where do we have that in Malaysia, which actually allows for such things to make sure that the men are also responsible for the family, and a lot of men want to take that responsibility, right, at the end of the day. So if we want to actually talk a bit from a policy and government perspective, I think we have to go back to the basic whys. Why do we have these biases in place, and what sort of policies do we have? In fact, it's as simple as changing the ministry's name and the ministry's outlook and outcome in order to go and address gender diversity as a whole. So once we break that mental roadblock, I think then we'll be able to go and start talking about women representation and all that. Otherwise, it will always be a case of the men saying, you know what, I have to have the women here because I have a quota of 30% on my boards. And the boards that I have sat on also, and the type of conversations we have, it's not about, hey, we need to go and add it in because it's going to add business value, but it's because, we have this thing on top of us and we're going to be reported on it. So.
And why 30%? And why can't it be 50?
I don't know. Because the thinking was, in the original point was last time, we said we have to start somewhere. If we have 50%, number one, we don't have enough of a pool of capable women to be able to be brought into. That was the thinking.
Oh, really?
I'm not saying that I agree or don't agree with it. Yeah. But that was the thinking. And but that 30% has been stuck. It hasn't moved, It was supposed to be a moving target, but it hasn't been moved from the time it was first introduced.
Mouna, your thoughts? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Darawati first. Yeah.
Yes,
this is a little bit of a divergence, but and we don't really talk about it at conferences, but actually the fund management side of things, VC, whether it's VC or PE, is actually a great career for women because you're on the buy side, you can manage your time, you're the one with the money, everyone will follow your schedule, and
that's right.
You don't have extended hours, you don't really have to travel if you're Malaysia only. So I don't think that the job description is the issue. Preventing it being attractive to women. So I think the networking part is an issue, I guess. More of an issue in this case.
That I totally agree. Because
I want to ask Darawati something around, and I really genuinely would like to find an answer for this one, and same for Zachary as well. In VCs, it's not so obvious to have that kind of path to becoming a partner, to becoming the partner that actually signs the check. So, of course, we're seeing more women engaging in the VC industry, and it's great. I mean, it's a good, positive trend, and we need role models, and we need daring, bold, women would I'm going to go and get it, even though I don't have a finance or investment background. I just want to be part of this I want to have the power. But even with those intentions and that engagement, very often, and actually I can't really, I observe it in the ecosystem here and in other countries where it's really the boys' club, right? And then you have to really fight your way through to make sure to go to the position of being able to be the partner who signs the check. So I would love to hear from your perspective, from your experience, what is the career path that women can take with this lack of network and lack of kind of not being part of the boys' club? How can they make it to the partner that signs the check?
Maybe I could give some perspective for EPF when I was in EPF. Maybe for some of you, you don't know that the chief investment officer is a woman. I always, when I was there, I used to kid with her. I said, "You're one of the most powerful persons in Malaysia, whether you're a woman or a man, right?" And the way that she came up was because she had enlightened bosses, I suppose, like previously with Dato Sharil, and when I took on board also, we took away that gender lens. We literally just look at all of our talents and we said, like, who are the ones who is the most capable, the one with the most experience and the ability to become a CIO. And she just came up tops, and it had nothing to do with the gender perspective. And I also look in terms of the investment team, right? There's roughly around 250 to 300 investment professionals in EPF, and a fair number of the talents of the investments are women. And we found it in EPF itself that because of this diversity, the men with their gung-ho attitude and the women who were much more careful, that came up with the right investment criteria for EPF, which met our risk return profiles, right? When you were talking about VCs and PEs, what I was very surprised in, or maybe it's not a surprise, a lot of the Asian PEs, actually, women participation are woefully very, very, very low. It was all majority men at the top there. And I don't understand why, and maybe you would be able to share with that. And I think if we want to talk about source of funding, we need to go and address that issue, especially if it's coming from an Asian perspective. Maybe in Malaysia, because we actually have a maternal culture, some states in Malaysia, the Kelantanis, the Negeri Sembilan, where women are actually the business owners and the leads of where it comes to money. Maybe it's more easy for us to look at women as leaders, but I don't know. I saw that in other aspects of especially in the Far East, women representation at the top, signing the checks and making the decisions. I can't, other than one PE fund, I couldn't think of anyone else where it was the women who was leading it.
Darawati, I would like your comments on that.
I think I did talk about this a bit earlier. The way PE VCs are structured, it's a very close club. So even at the decision making, you probably have anywhere between 3 to 5 to 7 senior partners, and they would have they are the sort of like very experienced deal makers, 10, 15 years doing deals. And I think the old boys network is one thing. I think the other barrier...
I like the word you use, all boys. It's not even just boys, it's all boys, yeah?
Yeah, well, I think the ones that I have in mind, they came from the same company, so definitely.
Exactly.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. So, but I think at the end of the day, I personally believe that if you have women professionals that have very good networks, and I know a lot of women in our market who knows everything and knows everyone and can get access to good deals, they're not really interested in being part of this boys network. They're very happy doing their own deals.
But Dara, maybe what we need to do is break away from the bro network and the cis network. We just need to create a network, full stop.
Cis network.
Well, sorry for lack of a better word,
No, but it's a good suggestion. I actually wrote it in my notes. We need to break off this. It's very hard to do culturally, though. I wish that's like an idealist kind of way. But I think there's one thing that,
So can I just? I think it's the incentive structure of the firms right now, of how the industry thinks about venture and private equity and how it's structured. It's very much based on share of profits going forward. And I think as a woman, you want to know, this is my worth. I'm getting paid this much now, and not some unknown figure in 10 years' time. And I think that is not attractive to most women in terms of a career path. I don't want to earn very little for the next 10 years with the hope that maybe 15 years later I might make 10 times that. That's just my
but Darawati, I'm just wondering, where are the women heroes standing up there and really saying, hey, you know what, for lack of a better word, please forgive me again, waving the flag, during the times of Tan Sri Rafida, right? She was a strong flag bearer for women participation in politics. When there was Tan Sri Zeti and Tan Sri Zarina also, they stood up, they stood up and stood out and actually owned the stage, right? I'm not seeing it nowadays. What's different?
I think, Zakri, this is the problem with, I think, a lot of women, because they are so humble, and so they want to stay behind. They don't want to be seen as shout about it, which I think is wrong. I think certain things you need to be proud of and actually shout it out. To give encouragement to other women. Mouna, sorry.
We have Elain here. She's leading the charge. She's in the papers and.
It's so true. There she is.
So leading the charge. There's Elain.
Yeah, Mouna. Yeah, I know you wanted to say something just now. Please.
Oh, maybe it was already said, or I forgot. Sorry.
Oh, you did. Anyway, okay. And I would like to move on just now. I think we kind of focus a lot, on the funding aspect of things and the business and fees. Now, I think I want to go back to you, Mouna, on the lack of or the accessibility for women entrepreneurs, specifically the women-led tech companies, in terms of their so-called, difficulty to access to funding. And why does it matter, actually? Why do you, in your view? Mouna?
Why does it matter that women access more funding? Is because it makes economic sense, I guess, from an investment point of view. In terms of turning $1 of investment into $1 of revenue, well-documented research shows that startups founded and co-founded by women are significantly better financial investments. So that makes economic sense. It makes sense from an ROI perspective. But also we know that, access to funding enables, good companies, as Darawati said, good companies, to grow and scale. And it matters because women hire more women. Because, women who exit or who, grow their net worth, would maybe invest in other women, will also access the boardroom. And that would also mean that, women will be more part of the decisions that shape our futures. As Zakri said, if the men are there, policymakers or in the boardroom are the ones who are making the decision, it may not fit the women's needs. Women won't be kind of participating in shaping their own futures. And the other thing that is really interesting, and that's what I really kind of after, is that innovation needs diversity. And so if we're not investing right, so if women are not participating in the innovation that we're experiencing today, it would be sad, right? It actually, innovation will suffer, and all of us will suffer from missed opportunities of that participation of women creativity and other things. So I think that's why I feel funding matters the most among many other reasons. So,
Can I follow through from your statement, Mouna? You know,
yes,
when you
please.
talk about diversity, is also needed in terms of innovation, but I think it's also needed in safety and security, especially in technology. Because, for example, now the rise of cyberbullying and cyber violence, so on and so forth, right? So, for example, in EPF, we were very averse to investing into social media type of investments because it is, yes, we acknowledge it that it's a tool, but it's a tool that currently is really being used for a lot of evil. If you don't have the women's perspective, this sort of things which comes, and again, please, I apologize if I sound a bit too gender biased, but I think it comes much more naturally to the female gender for bullying issues. You know, things which has to do with the emotions, things which has to do with it's not just about the money, right? Yeah, empathy. Thank you. So if we don't have women representation in technology, AI, social media, so on and so forth, we're going to have a world that is the tools that is set up to be very, very violent, for example, or it doesn't take into account the human element of things. That to me, I think is we need to have women to ensure we have a future, and we have a good future. And we actually have not only just a quantity of abundance of things, but also quality of life issues. Yeah, that's my thoughts. You know.
Yeah, no, but thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we have a question from the audience. And I encourage more audience to put up your questions. So this is a question from Isabel Bungan Francis. So she mentioned here SEAF, which is a Small Enterprise Assistance Fund, has its own gender lens scorecard for non-PLC. So it's based in the US, yeah? Bloomberg has its gender lens index for PLC. Is there a guide for P and VC benchmarking? Darawati, any thoughts, Zakri and
I can give a few points here. Everything flows to where the money is. So if I were to talk about the green and the ESG lens, you know what? At EPF, we started talking about this like 5 to 6 years ago. We tried to convince people to start setting it up. The PEs, nothing came out of it, right? So at the end of the day, we got fed up and we said, okay, fine and good. We will set up our own criteria. And the minute when your institutional investors, the ones who are holding the funds and money, set up their criteria, everybody follows suit. So when you talk about, is there a PNVC benchmarking? From what I have seen, there's none, right? But this is where the institutional investors need to take their responsibility to actually set the direction. Leave it to the PNVC to then structure their own benchmarking to meet between the broad frameworks. But you need to have where the money is to set the direction. And I think this is where, Darawati, this is where I think you would play a very strong role also in terms of like saying, you want access to my money? This is the criteria. How you do it, it's really up to you, but make sure you have it in place.
But Darawati, do you think this is a role or that association can play as well?
I think the association could play a role here. I mean, in terms of, coming up with indexes such as this and guidance. But so far, I think the association has not done that. I think we leave it to the institutional investors to, set the path in terms of, what are the limitations or what is encouraged. So, for example, when Equinas was doing its Bumiputra outsourcing program, there were certain KPIs which so the intention was deliver performance, but if you meet certain developmental agenda, then you get added incentive from the carried interest schemes. So I think it's a two-way thing in terms of you you don't want to at the end of the day, you're going into this asset class to make money, the investors, but at the same time, you're also encouraging certain developmental.
Yeah, but it's quite sad, isn't it? I mean, you have to incentivize them somewhat to go into this. If not, so if not, there's no actually natural intention. Actually,
Elain, I think to me, I take it the other way around. I just took it very, very clearly that I'm using the filter of ESG. Okay. For EPF, it was a business decision why we went into ESG. It's not because we are a bunch of tree huggers or whatever, We know for a fact, and we even had one of our PEs which was ESG focused, and it was demonstrated that they performed superior. So for us, it's purely a business requirements. So just now you were saying that women-led companies and women organizations give superior returns, then put it out there. We expect it because we know for a fact that it's going to give X% superior returns. So the thing is, you as a company better make sure you have women, because I want to go and get an exponential multiplier effect on this. So, sorry, I sound very aggressive here, but at the end of the day, I have to talk like the bros, Yeah, that's how the bros talk at the end of the day. You're right. It's all about the money. Let's not talk about, this fuzzy-wuzzy feel-good factor. Show me the money. And because one of the factors is women participation and diversity. That's one of the recipes. Make sure you have that in place.
And listening to you, Zakri and Darawati, regarding this last question, I wonder what you think about the role of LPs, right, in the fund. Because we're talking about like the incentive and why we adopt those considerations in the first place. But what if the fund's LPs actually are not engaged, or they are not really incentivized? They just want to return, and it's a question of education, right? So how do we approach that side of things? Not at the managing partner level or the partner level, but at the
No, that's a great point, because, like, for example, ESG has been a very, pet project of mine since like 6 to 7 years ago. And when I was sort of like trying to introduce it to the board and the different boards that I'm on, actually, right, they equated it, well, it's just a nice thing to have. What changed their mind was when it actually translated into real business values. So my task then was to really search to find, quantifiable data which actually supports my assertions. The minute I could actually show that, so for example, I'll give you one example, like I'm on Astro, right? So why the heck should we even go into ESG? And a simple matter is, we know for a fact that piracy is a major concern for Astro, which is a broadcast company, right? Who wants to go and pay for Astro? But when you look in terms of our demographics, majority of Gen Ys and below, sustainability is a major factor for them. They would be willing to pay if you can demonstrate to them that your business would actually address climate change and would actually change the world. So if you can actually make that as part of your business proposition, all of a sudden it brings in money. From Sime Darby plantations, for example, it is also shown that sustainable oil palm commands a 30% margins over normal oil palm. So all of a sudden, ESG becomes a business proposition. So similarly, I think we need to actually show that gender diversity and women actually has a business proposition. You show that to any of the LPs, all of a sudden, I mean, it's a decision. It's a decision, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for ESG, the data, for example, like environmental disasters, it is easy to quantify. For some of these companies that have had their stock price go down significantly because of environmental issues, you can quantify it. But I guess for women, the only way you can sort of quantify it is get that. You need that pool of data to show that women-led comes, and that's slightly, I think, quite challenging for
Well, but you know that shouldn't stop us, because I know a lot of this data is American based. I mean, I did some read
Yeah,
up on
exactly.
it,
Yeah.
right? Women-led companies actually gives back 38% higher than men-led, if I'm not mistaken. Some American data. So why don't we? And Elaine, you talked about at a national level, right? So let's engage the Ministry of Women and blah 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 to come up with some clear data, do studies on why
Come on, Elaine.
women would actually add value to the business. Okay. Hey,
You
you
want
are giving me
to
this
engage
look.
women?
What hope do we have?
No. I mean, to me, rather than engage with the Ministry of Women and Rural Development, I might as well engage with the Prime Minister.
Oh, why not? Do it. But the thing is,
No,
translate that into real dollars and cents. Enough of all this, because it's a feel-good factor. Show conclusively that women in business brings the money in.
Exactly. In the meantime, we need to get the job done, right? And this is why
Yes.
we need also gender-led investment, where all the LPs we have the buy-in. They put $50-60 million into the fund to say, we already know it's a good investment. So this is why we need to also, back to the gender-led investing, because it's very important to know that listening to us, there is so many things we can do on a cultural perspective,
Yes.
from a policy perspective. This will take decades. Women are getting impatient about, getting ahead.
Okay. So which is
So,
why I say go and meet up with Omar Swift of Bursa. He's the CEO of Bursa. He is very strong on ESG. Get the women agenda on an existing platform, which is the S aspect of ESG. So then you don't need to go and
maybe we'll
spend decades.
Yeah, we'll
Sorry?
get Omar as a guest next. We'll get
Get
Omar
him
as a
in.
guest next.
Get him in. You know him. He's a big guy. He looks scary physically, but he's actually he's on it. So
No,
and
he's not
nothing works
scary,
better
it's
from a
fine.
regulatory perspective, right?
Okay. Well, we have a comment from Diana. So I think we've been getting a lot of good comments. By the way, Diana is from SC. So awesome work and amazing initiative.
Whoops, I'm in trouble now.
Yeah. No, it's fine. So I told everybody in SC that I'm organizing this, so it's fine.
No, but
anyway,
Elaine, seriously speaking, I think you need to go and get the Dato Sai Alba and Omar Swifts on board, because in Malaysia, from what I can actually see, you need to go and get the ones who set the policies and the regulations to see the business aspect of this. Once you get them on board, magic will happen.
No, I think MOF, SC actually was gathering some data about this, but more from the entrepreneur's perspective and not from the VC fund management angle. And I think another group that we should engage with is actually with Zafrol,
Absolutely.
because they have launched that Penjana capital initiative, which I hope that they will continue to come up with more bigger matching fund, because I think it's good that they came up with that first matching fund initiative, but I hope that they can come up with a bigger one, which can attract more regional VCs into the country, right? Anyway, having said that, we have another Isabel. We've got nice questions. So we've got another one from Isabel. She said, just thinking out loud, pull data from women and marginalized segments of society for a full algorithm and put it to test. Maybe another API used by everyone in open banking to champion and fight bias in the system. It's just one of her suggestions. Any thoughts on this?
I don't quite understand this new algorithm and put into test. I don't quite understand that. I presume what she's talking about is doing policies from data. So at the moment, we don't actually have any ministry or agency working to gather this information. Who's meant to do it?
Yeah.
Is it the Ministry
Yeah,
of Women,
and who should?
HR or whatever?
It shouldn't be the Ministry of Women. It should be either the EPU or MOF, because this should be a business issue. It shouldn't be a social issue, I feel.
That's right.
Once you have that, then you break down the glass ceilings.
Yeah. I think she's talking about open banking. Is it maybe in terms of access to financing through financial institutions? Credit scoring, algorithms. Yeah. But anyway, good points.
Okay, there is a question. There's a comment. Bursa is EPF end of scale. How do we help all the makcik, the nasi lemak makcik? This is from Richard Abbas. Dato Richard Azlan Abbas. Can we put up the question, please? Yeah.
Yeah.
Zakri, you wanna comment, Darawati?
Well, to me, when you want to talk about the Kak Kias of the world, who's a makcik nasi lemak, right? I think this is the responsibility of the government. This is a social issue, and I think we need to understand that we are not Superman or Superwoman here, right? We can't solve every problem in the world, and this is an issue for the Ministry of Women, Social and Family Affairs. To me, I feel, right? Over here, we are talking about let's bring the gender diversity into the big bucks, and hopefully that you will have the trickle-on effect, right? And whether we like it or not, in the makcik nasi lemak, women are the main components of the informal sector, and this falls off our radar at this point of time, and this has to be taken on by the government and at a social security issue.
Maybe for EPF, I guess a segment that we haven't really spoken about is social enterprise funding. So that is actually a very active sector, and it does get funded from certain institutional investors. However, it's died down over the past few years. But those kind of, would I call them VC firms?
No, that should be like Khazanas. That should be the Khazanas of the world.
They would be able to do some microfunding.
Yeah. Definitely not EPF, because at the end of the day, that's your money we are talking about, right? So that is our money. Sorry, it's our money. Do we really want to go and put our money into social enterprises if it is not proven at this point of time? So again, it boils back down to data. It must be data-driven investment decisions.
Agreed. Mouna, any comments on that?
No, I think I'm good. I think it was well said by Zakri.
Well, anyway, actually, Elain, on that point, I would actually like to see some of our Malaysian corporates that have, CSR programs be more active in this side of funding micro businesses and less about promoting their brands through community projects. I think that there could be a pool of funding which they set aside for CSR that could go to societal projects.
Darawati, I just came out in hives when you use the word CSR. I have such an allergic reaction to CSR because, the problem when we use the word CSR, it immediately evokes these pictures of check giving and take a photo of me, handing clothes to children or whatever. To me, I think it's just about monetizing ESG. Like what I had mentioned earlier on, about it's a margin play. It's about making sure that you are able to be relevant to your customer base. And your customer base are all the young people at this point of time. And young people, they are not like when we were growing up, the evil Wall Street time, right? Where greed is good, right? Young people, it's all about, we are here to save the planet. So if we can actually translate the ESG aspect into dollars and cents and why it makes sense to help the micro businesses at the end of the day, right? Quantify it. Then it shouldn't be a problem for any companies, I think. And make sense to their own branding and their own products.
But this goes to Mouna's point that, it may take a long time to be able to get that quantification because you do need long-term data. So in the meantime, you don't just sit still and don't do anything. You can still, encourage CSR programs to be a bit more not just about giving checks and buying an ambulance, but being more about funding some of these community projects. Until you can,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah, no, and you know what? At this point of time, also even at the board level, they don't understand the aspects of ESG, CSR, and how do you make money out of this. Unfortunately, I think we need to do a lot more engagements and teaching, I suppose, on board members.
Education.
And when you mentioned just now the old boys network, I emphasize on the word old.
Yeah, especially Darawati's, your work is so important with the association, right? So because you have, I guess your membership, the member base is institutional investors, and so you have that access to your members. And
our investors are not members of our association. They don't talk to us.
Oh, okay, all right.
Institutional investors don't like VC asset class in Malaysia.
No, that's not. Okay, even though I'm no longer in EPF, I have to say something here.
Did I trigger something here?
No, you didn't.
No, but to be honest, we don't expect we expect EPF to support to some extent, but we understand why they don't. Yeah.
Because it doesn't fit the risk return profile. I mean, it's as simple as that, But now I'm wearing a different hat. I'm open to it.
Yes. I spent 30 years trying to get money from EPF.
I'm back.
Hi.
Yes, we lost you for a while, but we pretended you didn't leave ever.
Yeah, we talked nice things about you, Elain, while you were not around.
Yeah.
Guys, okay, I'm sorry. Guys, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Anyway, we've got to end the session today, but before we wrap up, we've got a quick fire quiz session, okay, for our audience, right? And I hope everyone has been listening. And please, everyone who's tuning in, please participate in this, as there are amazing, rewards, for those who win, right? Okay. Anyway, question one, there's anyway, how many questions? 1, 2, there's 5 questions altogether. So the Prime Minister of Malaysia has announced a new maximum fundraising limit for companies raising funds through ECF, and he announced this yesterday in the new incentive program, right? So what is the new maximum fundraising limit for companies raising funds through equity crowdfunding? A, 5 million, B, 10 million, C, 20 million. So just put in your answers now, and our team will pick it up. Oh, yeah, you can if you want. All right. Okay. So I'm going to read the next question. Question 2. Data-driven screening processes. Shall we pull up question 2? Data-driven screening processes have improved the number of female-founded companies being funded. Is it true or false? True or false?
In general,
Data-driven screening. This is in general. Yeah. True or false? Okay. All right, let's go on to question 3. What is the name of the women-based entrepreneurial community platform that was established by Mouna Aouri? Woomentum, or Women to Front?
I hope that's not the answer there, Elain.
I don't know.
Oh, that's the answer. Oh, gosh.
Who highlighted that B question?
I didn't.
My hands are here. I didn't touch anything.
Wasn't me.
This platform is really cool. I like it. I like this StreamYard.
All right. Can we go on to question 4? And women VCs are more likely to invest in female-led companies. Women VCs are more likely to invest in female-led companies. True or false? True or false? Audience, if you get it wrong, please go back to kindergarten. True or false? Women VCs are more likely to invest in female-led companies. All right, next question, please. Last question for the day. There are more female than male CEOs in Malaysia in 2020. There are more female than male CEOs in Malaysia in 2020. Is it true or false? Okay, whilst the back end guys, do the selection of the winners, can I have some final words from our guest today before we end the session? Darawati, can we start with you?
Yeah, actually, yesterday I was on also another women's session. And, there were, I think, about 100 manager type women. It was a mentorship kind of program around career paths, and quite a number of them actually said that they were coming out of business school looking for career change, and a lot of them were talking about wanting to go either entrepreneurship route or into the VCPE space, and they were asking, how do you actually get into that industry? So I think in terms of going forward, there's definitely a lot of interest, and that's because you see in the papers, mainstream media reporting about success stories around unicorns, around women founders, like Grab, for example. It comes up all the time. Vivi, and icons like this creates excitement in the younger generation, and they want to sort of emulate these icons. So I think for the VC industry, we need to kind of showcase any successes we have in terms of companies which have women-led founders or women CEOs or teams where women are involved, and showcase them on whichever platform, so that there's more awareness of this as a career path, and also I think a lot more people are aware that you can access funding through VC and equity crowdfunding platforms. So I think that's been less of an issue going forward, but I think as an entry point.
Thank you, Darawati. Zakri, last words from you. Final words.
Yeah, I'm a utopia idealist, right? And at the end of the day, I would really, really love to be able to go and set up, discussions and talks or whatever, so that the gender between men and women becomes irrelevant moving forward. So, for example, if you were to go and set up a company, the policies in place is safe for all genders rather than men and women. So, for example, it'll be totally safe for a man to actually say, I'm going to take time off to take care of my kids, for example, as opposed to no, that's not your place. So we need to have policies in place to go and protect women. But I know it's a very long way to go, and I think this sort of talks is very, very informative, and we have to start somewhere. And I really hope, Elain, moving forward, and in fact for everybody here, that discussions on women issues is not only limited amongst women. I think you need to go to make sure that the men are also involved in the discussion, because at the end of the day, you know, whether we like it or not, the policies and all that are set by the men, and the men need to understand what are the concerns, what are the issues, what are the challenges, and what are the opportunities when you actually open up the doors to all genders, you know, in that sense. And I think that's what's missing at this point of time.
Yeah. I'll get the bros together with us, and we'll do that.
Oh, you should get all the bros together.
And Mouna.
Yes. So that's why your participation, Zakri, was so important today, and I really enjoyed being on the panel with you, particularly because you're a man, but mostly with Darawati because she's my sister. Crime of empowering women. But my final word really, I don't know, there are so many aspects to it. I've been so long in empowering women and entrepreneurs, and I know that there are so many layers, and it can be daunting sometimes. But I would like us to stay positive and hopeful, and that things will change, that it's not the job of one organization or one type of industry or one ministry. It's really multiple stakeholders coming together towards, you know, a better one single goal, which is to advance our societies, really, because we all have children and, you know, boys and girls, and I think, you know, equality and diversity is healthy, and it just brings the best in us. And I just want us to stay focused on the mission and never give up.
Well said.
Well said. Anyway, before we sign off, speakers, guests, we received a few questions today, right? And which question do you think is your favorite?
Oh boy, so many.
The one that comes to mind.
You know, I get to do how my parents always say, there are no favorites in this family. Every question is valid.
Yeah. I have to say that. But I guess my personal one would be the benchmarking. Because I think,
Isabel, I think that was the first question.
Yeah, Mouna?
Yeah, same. I found all the questions, so thank you all for the questions, because it helped us also kind of like have that interactive conversation and lively conversation. But I think Isabel's question came to my mind also.
Okay, great. So actually, that's the best question actually wins an exclusive Rus Kahara scarf. Yeah, specially designed scarf worth 350 ringgit. So that goes to Miss Isabel Francis. Yay! Congrats. Congrats, Isabel. And we're announcing, the winner for the quick fire quiz. Now, the quick fire quiz winner will receive one yoga pass at Damai Studio and Cafe. That's for 7 sessions, all right, worth 175 ringgit. Okay. And if the winner is a male, then he needs to pass it on to his girlfriend, his mother, his sister, or his wife. He can't use it.
This is so unfair, Elain. This is so unfair.
We like men to come to yoga.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
We're so biased suddenly.
And the winner is, do we have the winner? Guys, are we going to showcase the winner? And the winner is Arif Anwar for the most correct answer for the quiz. It's a guy.
No, Arif, go for it. Just go for the classes, okay?
See you at the next class.
The men down. Go for the classes.
Yeah, Darawati goes there. Unfortunately, I
I'll
can't.
see you at the next class on Saturday morning.
Show them how to do the downward dog.
And before we sign off, I just would like to announce the first woman to sign up as an investor with Atta Plus in the month of March 2021 will get an investment voucher worth 200 ringgit in celebration of International Women's Day campaign month. And for any female entrepreneurs who sign up with Ada Plus to raise funds, for this month, there's a special rate of 1,888 of our application fee. So PM us for more information. Okay, with that, thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. We've really overshot the time by 15 minutes, but I think the discussion was fantastic. And I think we could have spoken till the end of the day, you know, because there's a lot to talk about. And I think what's most important is that how can we take this to the next level, and what can we do about it, you know, be it conversations or engagements with either the regulatory bodies or the specific ministries, or even the associations, or even, you know, we ourselves, what can we do about it? And thank you again for being with us, and we look forward to seeing all the audience at our next Ask Atta session next month. So keep the lookout for it, and thank you again. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Stay on, please, guests.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.